I was in my nice little suburban picket fence yard. And yeah, my grass looked pretty good to everybody else. And then I stepped outside and I walked into fucking Yosemite, where there's clouds and rainbows and cliffs and mountains and forests. And it's like, I had no idea that this much world was on the other side if I could just dare to find who I really am.
Every story has a turning point, a moment when everything shifts. Here on Hope Comes to Visit, we hold space for those moments, the messy middles, the sacred breakthroughs, and the quiet strength that carries us forward. I'm Danielle Elliott Smith. Friends, today's guest is someone I've had the pleasure of knowing both in person and online for over a dozen years. Wendy Faith, formerly Wendy Pearsall, is a creative business coach, artist, and late-in-life lesbian who has built and sold 2 companies, published over 30 books, and even served as a city councilwoman. But what makes Wendy's story so compelling isn't her accomplishments. It's her courage to walk away from everything that wasn't aligned, even when it meant starting all over. After facing personal and professional betrayals that cracked her open, Wendy rebuilt her life and her business from a place of radical authenticity. Now she helps LGBTQ+ and women entrepreneurs unfreeze, unmask, and build businesses rooted in nervous system safety and deep alignment, not people-pleasing. Today, we're talking about how she rebuilt from the inside out and how hope, even in the darkest, messiest moments, can light the way forward. Let's take a quick moment to thank the people that support and sponsor the podcast. When life takes an unexpected turn, you deserve someone who will stand beside you. St. Louis attorney Chris Jolly offers experienced one-on-one legal defense. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP, or you can visit dullylawfirm.com. That's DULLE lawfirm.com for a free consultation. Wendy, thank you so much for being here. It is such a joy to have you and to see your face. It's been a while.
Danielle, you have always been one of my absolute favorite people on this planet. And I think it's been over 15 years that we've known each other. But when you said that you were looking for people to be on your show, I was just like, I just want to have another conversation with you because I've just felt always so connected to you.
Oh, see, and I feel exactly the same way. And one of my goals with this is not only to make people I'm talking to feel seen, but by osmosis to help people who are listening have moments of feeling seen the same way. And I know that so much of your journey has been an evolution. The very first thing I knew about you way back when was the mom blogging for dummies, right? And you as a mom blogger. And there have been so many ands to you as an individual, as a woman, as someone who is growing as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And in each of those, now especially when you talk about having to go through the betrayals and the growth and the cracking wide open and figuring out what that authentic version of you looks like, I think that resonates with so many of us. Even in reading the bio that you have on your website, part of my story parallels the seeking to live in a perfect but not authentic way because the outside is supposed to be pretty, right? So if you would, I would love for our audience to get to know you a little bit. Obviously, I know you, but I want them to know and understand you. So will you share a little bit of your journey with us?
Oh my gosh, where do you want me to start, Danielle?
Let's start with the moment that you decided where you were, that you decided you were not authentic, what that perfect but inauthentic version of Wendy looked like, and what the evolution to make those changes looks like moving forward.
Oh, I guess that starts me in 2022, which is past some of those accomplishments that you had just mentioned. But in 2022 was the year, 21, I sold my business. And I'd been working for the people who had bought it, and I was miserable. So I lost my dog. my father, who I'd been very close to for my entire life, had been involved with a woman that I can now look back and say, oh, she has narcissistic personality disorder, because she just pushed every single person out of his life, including me. And I was just like, wow, what is going on? Like,
Right.
we've not ever gone more than a week or two without ever talking to each other. And suddenly I'm not allowed to talk to you. So I felt super abandoned. And then the people who bought my business laid me off and laid my whole team off. Again, just like this complete like betrayal of what they said they were going to do when they bought my company. And again, feeling abandoned. And then I was married to a man at the time for 24 years. And while I was reeling in all of this, he gets me on the phone like at the worst possible moment and says, if you don't give me, tens of thousands of dollars, I'm going to go out of business and I need to know in the next 10 minutes, which now I can look back and go, wow, that was such a manipulation tactic that I had been falling for decades. So,
Wow.
so these four things happened all within like 5 months. And
Those are a lot of dominoes all at the same time.
Exactly. And, it's so easy for me to now look back and say, oh man, the universe had my back, but I can guarantee you, can I swear? Because
You absolutely can.
because I can guarantee
I want the most real version of you.
Did not fucking feel like the universe had my back. I felt like nobody had my back in that moment. And I didn't even know how to have my own back in that moment. And that's where
I would say like that's one of those things that we didn't know what that looked like. We didn't know how. We were supposed to present. We were supposed to make sure that people thought everything looked okay when the dominoes were falling. That was our job. Our job wasn't to make sure the dominoes didn't fall. It was to make sure that it looked like the dominoes weren't falling.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that resonates so much because, well, and that was part of, I think, my starting of the disconnect was that I could not hold it together anymore on the outside. And I just started crumbling on the outside as well as the inside. That's where I think our paths started crossing a little bit because I didn't know what else to do, but I went to Al-Anon because I was like, what is going on here? My husband had given up drinking and doing drugs 20 years ago, but I think he's acting like a deadaholic. And like, am I off in this? And I would say that Al-Anon was one of my saving graces at that point to just give me some outside perspective, because I like to make this comment now that when your family is so dysfunctional, you're baked in a dysfunctional sized cake pan. So you literally know no other way of being. No other way of being. And so none of what I needed to be woken up to occurred to me because it was just completely out of the realm of reality for me.
So when you start to go through that process and you're waking up a little bit, what do you realize needs to change?
Gosh, so much needed to change. But I know I mentioned this to you earlier, but I had started getting a little bit involved with Al-Anon, and somebody had mentioned adult children of alcoholics, and I'd heard about that my entire life, and I'm like, well, that's completely irrelevant to me because my parents didn't drink, so I can't be an adult child of an alcoholic. But something, and I can now just say higher self, whatever, said, maybe just go look at, look at what they're about.
Just listen.
Yeah, just stay. And I cannot even tell you the amount of healing that happened in the 10 minutes it took me to read the laundry list of traits of adult children of alcoholics. And I just...
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, it was instantly healing. Because I went, oh my God, I have been carrying around their bullshit my entire life. thinking that I was the problem.
The power in being seen and recognized and understanding that you are not alone is unparalleled. And just putting yourself in that position, having taken that, what amounted to kind of a tiny step, becomes this gigantic pivotal moment for you.
It did.
So fast forward, now you coach. I love that you identify late in life lesbian. What was that coming out process look like?
Well, it was at that point, understanding how trauma and complex PTSD affects a person. Like, that's really what I started learning. Mm-hmm. And it really explained every problem I'd ever had in my entire life. So a lot of it, really, that whole process was undoing all of the stuff that had been laid upon me, and then trying to figure out, well, what was left and what was really me in the underneath.
Who is Wendy?
Yeah. And that process was not pretty.
Well, then let me ask you this. So the Wendy that I first met versus the Wendy that I'm talking to right now, who is Wendy Faith?
Well, the Wendy Faith now truly understands that all of those coping mechanisms and all of that denial and all of those things that I used to beat myself up about was really just a whole bunch of inside parts not really working together, trying to protect me from the things that I had experienced in the past. So the coming out process was really simple. I had a crush on a girl when I was 12. The whole school found out. So this is 1979, 1980. You can imagine how well that went over at that time.
Yep, and I are very close in age.
Yes, yeah. I lost every single friend, and there was a part of me that said, okay, if this is what it means to like girls, I want no part of that. And so I'm going to be heterosexual, and I'm living in a heterosexual world, and that's what I'm going to get rewarded for. So that's how I'm going to live. But to be able to here's the best analogy, is that I'm also adopted. And everybody always said, I've always heard that if you ever find your birth parents, that you probably will have this hole inside. And when you find that birth parent, that hole will be filled. Well, I found my birth parent, my birth mom, when I was 40, and no hole was filled. And I was like, oh shit.
You're like, here I had this expectation. Yeah. I was waiting to feel this moment. Yeah. And yet.
Yeah. And when I finally found the part of myself that was actually gay, and I still get emotional about it, I just laid in my bed and I held myself and I was like, oh my God, there you are. That's what I've been looking for my whole life.
Oh my God, Wendy, I want to hug you.
Banished, and just to get that part of me back.
I want to hug you so deeply for 12-year-old Wendy, yes. For 40-year-old Wendy, for every child that has had that experience that has not been received the way they should have. My daughter is gay, and she didn't date in high school. She came to me her freshman year of college, and dang it if she wasn't the cutest thing when she told me. And I looked at her and I said, it's me. Did you really think that I wouldn't be okay? And she said, oh no, I knew you'd be fine. I knew you'd be great. I just am still getting used to saying it out loud. And she'd been in Catholic school her entire life and was used to a different reaction to it. Yeah. And right after that, her having a girlfriend, I got to see a completely different side of my child, because this child was free to finally be herself. She'd been hiding this piece of her that she didn't feel as though she was able to say, this is who I am. And now she is. Like, she's heading into her senior year at college, and good God, what joy there is in watching this authentic version of her just be and find and explore and live the best version of her. And when you said you just help, oh my gosh, like, I want to hug you, right? I can't imagine having quieted that piece of your soul for so long.
Oh God, you put it that way. Whew, that hits me too. Yeah. Well,
but I love getting to see this big, bold, beautiful version of you, soul included.
oh, Danielle, thank you.
You're welcome.
It has been, God, it's been such a journey. In fact, when you were just talking about your daughter and I didn't know she was gay, and I absolutely freaking love that for her, for you, for everybody that's in her life. My daughter, my oldest daughter, had a really similar reaction. And she said, I really want to thank your partner because I'm now getting to know the mom that I never knew I had. I actually have a happy mom now. I'm just, this is a whole new person that I'm getting to know for the first time. And she's was in her late 20s at the time. And
getting to see my daughter
yes,
Twitter-pated, right?
Yes.
Just getting to see her giddy about something and getting to see her excited and lovey and flirtatious, and whereas she'd always been a little more reserved. And that freedom is a beautiful thing. So when you are coaching, I want to transition into your coaching a little bit, because I think that my hope is that you're able to help people feel comfortable in the every version of themselves, right? And I know that one of the things you specialize in is business related. Is there any personal portion of it, or are you strictly helping marginalized communities business related? Because I know that you said LGBTQ plus, but it sounded like it might potentially be more business related. So I'll let you talk about what you do business wise, what you're coaching related to.
So it is both. It's all of the above. So the best way I can explain it is that throughout my entire previous career, when I was living as a heterosexual woman and business owner, that there were just stumbling blocks that no matter how many times I came upon them, I could not get past them. A lot of it had to do with self-worth, because I didn't have all my parts of myself. And so I couldn't really value like what I offered without being a whole person. A lot of it had to do with visibility because of what happened when I was 12. And so I could build brands, I could build products, but anytime I had to be the face of anything and promote myself, that felt like such a threatening, it was like a visceral trauma experience. Like, I feel vulnerable. I need to do the fight, flight, or freeze and get the fuck out of here. Anytime I got visible. And you and we both have had visible careers. You've been way better about sustaining it than I am. But I've been on TV and I could get there and then I'd come home and I'd be like, oh, like it was just too much. And so it was a constant, like this push, pull. And when I look back at that career and I can see that most of those business hurdles that I had their roots in some sort of trauma response. Some sort of, I need to fight for this. I need to fly away from this, or I'm frozen up, I'm stuck, I'm procrastinating, I'm daydreaming, or I'm fawning. That may be not so much, but once I was able to understand all that business stuff in that sort of context, and truly it was that visibility wound that was really holding me back. Once I was able to just actually come out and feel safe in my own skin, suddenly I was like, oh, that's old stuff. Like it never occurred to me, but now I can be visible and it actually feels safe. And so that's what I'm really hoping to help people with in terms of unresolved stuff in their past, which might be holding them back in business, because it's not
Amazing.
about this, because you've always had that extraordinary brand. Like, how can you be authentic and be extraordinary if you're not living your actual authentic, being with your actual authentic self? And how do you do that if you still have stuff in your past? So it's not about the bottom line. It's about how do you get aligned with who you truly are? Because that's the business I want to see in this world.
See, and what's amazing about that is because when you were talking about aligning, authenticity versus perfection, that kind of thing, I didn't know that I wasn't living authentically. My drinking was my way out, and that happened. I'm a late in life alcoholic, right? I grew up with alcohol being a problem in the home and was 100% sure I would never have a problem with it myself because of that. And spent most of my life being able to have a glass or two of wine and moving right along. However, I started to find myself falling very much into the, oh my gosh, I'm stressed, pour me a glass of wine. Oh, I can't handle it, pour me a glass of wine. I've earned it. And the environment we were in the early online blogging conferences was very attuned to the rosé all day and the moms and wine and the sippy cups and all of that. And the more I saw of the propaganda surrounding, well, of course, moms love wine, and of course you need to get away, and it validated my need, desire to drink / self-medicate. The moment my family started to say, well, do you always have to have 3 or 4 glasses of wine? I thought, you know what? Last time I checked, I'm a damn adult. I turned 21 a long damn time ago, so leave me alone. But what I started to do was hide it. And because I was hiding it, I was drinking more. And it eventually hit critical mass. But I didn't know that my training had been keep it perfect on the outside, hide all the garbage. So most of the people in my world didn't know that I was edging closer and closer and closer to this precipice. By the time I sought help, there were a very small handful of people who knew, but I just up and disappeared and went to treatment. I continued working. I had to go to treatment. The place I chose to go to treatment allowed me to take my computer and my phone with me. I wouldn't go anywhere that didn't, because I had campaigns I still had to finish. Whew. Because I couldn't let people know, right? And then once I was 6 months sober and I announced it and decided I'm going to come out with it, there were brands that said, we won't work with you anymore. Wow. And that was really interesting to me. But at that point, I decided I needed to pivot because I needed to do something. What I had been through felt far more crucial, intense, life-altering than what I had been doing. I couldn't focus on lifestyle brands. I couldn't focus on hairstyles and what women over 40 were wearing and where should we travel. I felt like I needed to do something that helped people who felt as empty and lost as I did. Because when I was going through it, there was no one who could talk to me from a place of understanding. Lots of people told me to stop drinking, but no one could talk to me from a place of the why or the how or the how did I get here. And I got there because I was hiding. because I didn't know how to be me. I didn't know who Danielle was. And that goes straight back to you. And I get the feeling that when you were struggling with visibility, that there wasn't necessarily a part of you that was thinking, 12-year-old Wendy is still trying to hide. This is because I've chosen a heterosexual lifestyle. This is because I'm carrying my parents' garbage, right? We don't realize everything we're carrying. Now that you know what you know, what would you tell someone about trying to figure out who their authentic person is? If you're struggling with perfection, but know you're not on the right path, how do you start?
Oh,
Both you and I hit a wall,
yeah.
right? I'd love to think that there's an easier way before the dominoes fall.
God, well, that is really one of the reasons that I turned to coaching, and rather than staying in publishing, it's like if I could go back in time to my old self and make that road a little easier, holy cow, I would do that. And the only way that I get to do that now is to help other people.
Right.
But your question, the two things that come to mind are also questions. And there was a very pivotal moment when everything had kind of fallen away in terms of the men in my life in 2022, where I asked myself, what would my life look like if I didn't have to be a good daughter or wife or business partner? Like, I had no clue, but that stirred something in me where I was like, oh my God, there's something there. So the question is, what could your life look like if you weren't living it for other people? I know we have our conditioning and that we still think we need to, right? But just what could it look like? Because that opening was exactly what I needed. That was kind of like the crack in the armor right there. Oh, and I'm trying to remember the other thing.
That is okay. I do it all the time. Let me switch and ask you this. How do you define hope?
That is a great question, because there were a lot of days when I didn't have any, Danielle, and I'm really so thrilled that is kind of the core of your message, because when you don't have it, when I had nothing to look forward to, that's a very scary place to be. Very, very scary place to be, because then you wonder, well, why the fuck am I here on this planet? Was I even supposed to be born? And those are not great questions to ask, by the way.
I had moments after the combination of the recovery piece I'd made it through. This podcast I've wanted to do since I was 9 months, a year into my recovery. I've owned the domain for 5 years, and I just kept putting it off. Fear, lack of worthiness, fill in the blank. And then I was just getting ready to do it, and then Marty passed away. And I thought to myself, who am I to do a podcast about hope? I have none. And I was I have told a previous guest, I have since realized that I wasn't supposed to start the podcast then. I wasn't supposed to do a podcast about hope until I'd actually lived in a place where I felt like there was none, so that I could really approach it from a full, vulnerable, wholehearted place. But there were moments after Marty passed away that I can remember thinking, maybe I'm done. Maybe I have actually done everything I'm supposed to do. I'm 50. I've accomplished a lot. I have 2 extraordinary children. They are this close to adulthood. They're healthy and happy and intelligent and on a good path. My ex-husband is an amazing human being, a good friend of mine. He loves them. They love him. He is a tremendous guiding source. I thought, maybe. And it was in little bits and pieces. People who checked on me, who showed up for me, who provided the light that I needed, that I found my way and hope reappeared. And that's why I get to be here. So despite the loss, despite the grief, despite the pain and the suffering, I get to be here, and I'm grateful to be here. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Because I can't. I'm happy with this version of me. This version of me is grateful and joy-filled and peaceful. And I had to go through all of those pieces and trauma and hurt and happiness to get here. I wouldn't necessarily wish it on anybody. But I don't fall into the everything happens for a reason category. But I certainly know that the light that other people provided for me in tiny amounts of hope is what reminded me how powerful hope is in keeping each of us going. And I know that everyone has some story that someone else needs to hear at some moment in their lives. And that's what I hope this is. And that's why I'm so grateful you're here, right? There are so many elements to your story that I hope the right people hear, whether it's their 12-year-old version of them, whether it's the need for being their authentic self in any form, whether it's the push in business, whether it's the need to sell a business when it's done, whether it's getting out of a relationship that's manipulative, whether it's recognizing that they're carrying childhood trauma. There is so much hope in every piece of your story.
I know.
I'm so grateful that you're spending time with me.
Danielle, sometimes it just shocks me how much our paths have paralleled without us even really knowing it. Because I had that exact thought. Maybe I'm done. Maybe I've done all I've needed to do on this earth. And it's probably a longer story in terms of how I was able to get to the other side of that. But what allowed me to get to the other side was a little bit spirituality, was a lot of therapy. But at one point, I woke up one morning and I said, wait a minute, what if Wendy Pearsall needs to die so that Wendy Faith can live her life? And that was what I needed to be able to be like, okay, from this place, I can actually let go of the past and even start to think about what's next. And that is what brought me hope.
That is so beautiful. That gave me chills. Because that was not an easy decision.
You know,
how did the people around you respond to the death of Wendy Pearsall in order for Wendy Faith to grow and thrive and be who you are right now?
well, The ex-husband no longer talks to me, and that's a really good thing. Not how I hoped things would go. I'm a little envious of how you were able to separate from your husband, but that's a different whatever. This person has boundaries now. And to the people who were used to not having boundaries and being able to suck my energy, my time, my talent, my light, they're really pissed off. And it's all my fault that I'm not giving them my energy and light anymore.
That sounds like a them problem to me.
Exactly.
That
The people who I want in my life, the people who actually can show up and not abandon and have healthy boundaries and have healthy perspectives, all of those people are still in my life. Every single one of them.
Isn't it beautiful to have people in your life whose energy matches yours?
Yes.
Because that's what I finally realized I needed. And that was one of my boundaries. I give and I give and I give. And I don't need to have people in my life who don't want the same thing out of our relationship. If your reasoning behind our friendship is strictly to take or only to show up when you need something, there is no equality there. And I want people who are willing to pour in and let me pour into them and who will pour back. Because I think that those relationships are the ones that fill me up, right? Sometimes I need to be filled up, and sometimes, gift giving is my love language. I will spoil the heck out of the people I love. But if I'm the only one ever showing up, so my circle might be a little bit smaller, but it is robust and it is rich and it is full and it has boundaries.
Well,
So
I think the really important part, the piece of the puzzle for me on that is how scared I was of losing people.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not realize how much I had to abandon myself in order for them to be in my life. So once I was able to finally see that it's a choice between abandoning myself and abandoning them, in a very simplistic way, when I don't abandon myself, I don't feel the loss. And that's a really important distinction because I was so afraid of losing people.
How proud of you are you? Like, how proud are you of this version of you?
I just did a TikTok on Queer Joy, and it was just me and my partner dancing in front of a bunch of Pride Month stuff, and it's not even just Pride, Danielle. It's being able to live in and love being in my own skin. And that is not something I've ever experienced in my life until now. So it's pride, it's self-love, it's safety, it's comfort, all from within, not seeking it outside of me. Which means I get to control it all, which is, that certainly helps my perfectionist side.
Right. But you're experiencing that joy because you're feeling it.
Yeah.
It's not seeking anyone else's validation of your experience.
Yeah.
I love all of this for you so very much. I'm so grateful to you for spending time with me. Do you have any final words of wisdom, of hope, anything that you would like to share that potentially I didn't ask you?
Oh, that's a good question. And nothing really comes to mind. I'm grateful to have shared a journey with you. I'm really grateful to have a way to put out a message of hope, but also to put out a message that that the road to authenticity certainly is very scary, but it's very, very, very worth it. I used to think, and this was one of the ways that kind of the men in my life used to keep me small, but because they would all say, well, is the grass really greener on the other side, Wendy? Why don't you just stay here? Because, probably not. The grass is probably not that green over there. And I would be like, oh, yeah, maybe I'm just wanting too much. Maybe, maybe it's a me problem once again. Shocking. I know, shocking, right? And once I was dared to see who I truly was in all of its messy, imperfect, super terrifying at times glory. And I said this in a different interview recently. It's not like the grass is greener on the other side. It's like I was in my nice little suburban picket fence yard. And yeah, my grass looked pretty good to everybody else. And then I stepped outside and I walked into fucking Yosemite, where there's clouds and rainbows and cliffs and mountains and forests. And it's like, I had no idea that this much world was on the other side if I could just dare to find who I really am. And so that's the message I am hoping to get out to your listeners is who you are matters.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. My heart is so full. Where can everyone find you and what can we do to support you and everything you're doing?
Well, as my coaching is now taking off, I can be found at wendyfaith.com. My Faith is my middle name, now last name. It's not a reference to faith as much as inner faith, but it is actually literally my middle name. I can be found on TikTok at Wendy_Faith, but most of all, I can be found anywhere where you need me to be found, I think is really what it comes down to. That for somebody who, if anybody out there is hearing this and it's resonating, I want to know them.
Oh, you have been so good for my heart. Wendy Faith, thank you so much for taking time. It is amazing to reconnect. It is so good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, friends, for spending time with us, for being here. I so hope this visit with Wendy brought you some courage, some light, some connection. And if you felt any resonance with it, my hope is that you will pass it on to someone that you think who needs to hear it, and you'll come back and visit us again. In the meantime, I hope you will take care of yourself, and I hope you will come back and you will remember more than anything that even in the dark, transformation can take root. Take care of you, and we will see you again soon. Naturally, it's important to thank the people who support and sponsor the podcast. This episode is supported by Chris Dully, a trusted criminal defense attorney and friend of mine here in St. Louis, who believes in second chances and solid representation. Whether you're facing a DWI, felony, or traffic issue, Chris handles your case personally, with clarity, compassion, and over 15 years of experience. When things feel uncertain, it helps to have someone steady in your corner. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP, or you can visit dullylawfirm.com to schedule your free consultation.